So we have a lot to talk about today. The topic is the levers of reality, the levers of existence. And the way I want to frame it is as follows. There is an interconnectedness that exists within the universe. Now, we know about this, for example, in physics, science, we all have heard of the butterfly effect, the idea that, there might be a butterfly flapping its wings somewhere, on the other side of the world, and it's creating, the way it's usually expressed is that there's a tsunami that breaks out somewhere as a result of that. I don't know if it's exactly so direct. Butterfly, tsunami, I'm sure there's more complicated factors at play. But nonetheless, I think the general concept is something that we can all relate to and appreciate. The idea that all actions have a reaction. We know the law of conservation of matter. Matter is never lost or destroyed. So anything that happens is always affecting everything else. And so in this grand structure of the universe, everything's connected. You pull on something, something else is going to happen. Nothing exists in a vacuum, with all due respect to Hoover. Right? Nothing. I'm trying. It's early Sunday morning. We're gonna get rolling on this. But nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything is connected. Who was it? Was it Simon and Garfunkel that sang, I am a rock, I'm an island, and a rock never cries and an island feels no pain? And that might be true in music, but it's not true in real life. No one is a rock, no one is an island, and no one is, completely alone, and their actions don't affect others. We're always affecting others. Others are always affecting us. Even if we close ourselves off, the reality is that we're being affected by others. In other words, in an inverse way, but we're still being affected by others. So there's this interconnectedness. Now, Kabbalah takes it a grand step further. Not only are all of the elements in our physical world, in our universe, interconnected, but all of the elements and all the strata of creation, they're all related as well. So to explore that for a second, let's explore what Kabbalah says about the four worlds. So there's a pretty well-known Kabbalistic teaching, the doctrine of the four worlds, the Dalit or Arba Olamot. What are the four worlds? So as Kabbalah describes, when you think of the hierarchy between spiritual source and physical manifestation, so you sometimes can think that it's kind of like, well, there's God, and then there's us, and it's just that God created us, and then we're here. Kabbalah says there's a lot of steps in between. God creates this process, step-by-step process, by which spiritual energy becomes manifest in physical reality. Now, could God have pulled it off just by poof, manifesting physical reality without any intervening steps? Sure, conceptually, but the problem then would be that there would be no rational way to kind of climb back up toward God, toward the source. But the fact that God almost creates a ladder type structure to descend, for the energy to descend down to create our reality, that allows for the possibility for there to be a relationship between the end and the beginning. Does that make sense? Because a lot of times you study Kabbalah and you're thinking like, did God really need what's called, I'll talk about it in a second, the Seder, Hishtalshelot, all of these different dimensions in between? Why not just create final result? Yeah, a human builder, you can correct me if I'm wrong, has to lay the foundation, then has to put the framing, then has to, I don't know, I'm missing a lot of steps here, I'm sure. But like, you got to do a lot of stuff before you have the final result. But that's a human being. Why can't God say, done, right? We got the final result. We got the house. We got the world. We got the planet. We got the universe. Can't God just create the final result? He could, but then there would be no spiritual model. There would be no spiritual concept or no divine concept for the type of reality that we are in, nor would there be a relationship fundamentally between us and the source. Because again, if God creates us in a way that is completely miraculous, completely beyond beyond any possibility for us to fathom, then we have an unfathomable relationship to the source, which means that we can't really get any closer. There's no ladder. God didn't drop down almost the ladder from the infinite floor down to us for us to climb back up. So God rather creates, or manifests creation in a way where there is a step-by-step ladder-like almost structure to get to our reality. And that is called, and I mentioned it before, but let's focus on this phrase for a second because it's important, I think, to get the original Kabbalistic terminology as well. It's called Seder Hishtalshalut. Seder Hishtalshalut. So let's go through the words. What do they mean? These are Hebrew words. What does Seder mean? Order. Good. Order. Like on Passover, we have the Seder. Why is the Passover holiday, evening a meal called the Seder? Because there's a specific order in which you do things. You don't just sit down and eat. If you do, get bounced out. I'm kidding. There's no bouncers at a Seder. But it's a specific, you got to wash your hands, you got to dip a vegetable, you got to talk about things, ask for questions, give some answers, drink 4 cups of wine, eat specific foods, right? There's a protocol. It's called the Seder because there's a protocol. So Seder means order. What does Hishtalshalut mean? It's a little
Falling down or something.
Could be. Then what do you say? What say you?
Almost like a chain.
Yeah, shalshelet. What is shalshelet? A chain. So think of a chain. I mean, literally a chain. Like, I don't know, like a chain, right? So how's a chain made? As its name suggests, it's got one link and another link. I'm going to run out of fingers right now, right? And then another link to that link and a link, right? So it's links that are interlocked into each other, that are linked into each other. So let's say it's not in a loop. Let's say you're holding it kind of, you're holding it at the top. It's open. You're holding the necklace, bracelet, whatever it is down, right? Piece of jewelry. So you have the top, you're holding the top link and it continues. What's cool about the example of a shalshelet, again, shalshelet means chain. What's useful about this example is that it's not just that it symbolizes something that starts at a top and ends at a bottom, but it also signifies that that the way it descends is one step after the next, each one interlocked with the other. No, I'm not doing the itsy bitsy spider, but right, each one interlocked into the other, one, the next, the next, the next. We also call this in Kabbalah Ila ve'alul, or Ila ve'alul, which means cause and effect. There's a step-by-step progression of reality. Kind of like, as I mentioned before, if you were to decide that you are buying a piece of land and putting up a house, your dream home, you're going to build a house. How do you get from dream to the final step? There's a lot of steps, right? You have to, consult with an architect, unless you're an architect, right? You got to consult with an architect and you got to tell them what you want. And then they have to sketch it out. And then if you approve it, I mean, I don't know, I've never done this before, but I'm assuming, right, that they would then give you a rendering and then you approve that. And then it goes step by step by step. Each step along the way, it's one incremental step, but that gets you a little further to your goal. It's like this in building. The reason why I'm using the analogy of building a home is because that's one that's used in Kabbalah a lot. Because in a certain way, when God created this world, he wanted a home for himself in an unusual place, in an unusual part of town. Let's put it that way, right? God's like, I want a home in a weird part of town, at a place where there's a lot of darkness and a lot of negativity sometimes. But anyway, the point is that that's an analogy. That's an example that's used a lot in Kabbalah. This notion of the world being analogous, the creation being analogous to like creating a home, and that process where it begins in desire, and then first there's the desire to build a home, and then there's a desire, and then you don't even know yet. It's not even quantified at that stage what it's going to look like. You just know what you want. The higher level one, I want a house. Then it goes through all the steps. The point is that every step along the way might be a small step, but every small step moves, to use a football analogy, because we're getting close, and an analogy that almost continues to work here, keeps the chains moving, right? The first down markers, whatever. Keep the chains moving. Every step, every piece that goes in, every contractor that comes that does something, it just moves the progress further until the ultimate goal. Shalshelet is a chain. A chain is made up. It's not one. It's not a thread. It doesn't say thread. It's not seder, whatever the word for thread would be. It's not a single strand, but it's made up of multiple links, one 2, 3, 4. Now, how many links are there between the top, God, and us? I don't know. I've never counted, but it's many links. But Kabbalah speaks specifically about 4 dimensions from the top to the bottom. Now, the highest dimension of these 4 is not at the very top, but it's useful. The way Kabbalah breaks down this construct, it's useful for us to understand how things kind of flow. So, yes.
Is shalshelet also the same word for the musical note in the Torah?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, because it goes up and down, and because it's a chain, it looks like a chain, and maybe it goes up and down.
Yeah, maybe. Shalshelet. Yeah. Very rare. It's a very rare note. By the way, usually it might be more than 3. It's a handful. Maybe 3 to 5. It's a low number. You check. Shalshelet is typically used because you mentioned shalshelet. It's a musical note. You know, when you read the Torah, you kind of chant it with some musical notes. So anyway, there's a rare one called shalshelet that goes up and down and up and down, and it's always employed in a case where the character that's being spoken of is being torn between choices. Like when it says that Joseph refused the advances of his master.
In the middle, 4 times.
4. See that?
Perfect.
Perfect. Compromise. Already starting off with compromise here. So like when Joseph refused the advances of his master's wife. So the Torah says, Vayima'ain, that he refused. But listen to the music. Vayima'ain. I'm not necessarily note correct on that, but the point is,
You missed one.
Missed one, but it goes up and down 3 times, meaning it's not so simple that he refused. He refused, but he was a little bit torn. When the angels tell Lot, Abraham's nephew, it's time to go. It's time to go, right? Like the destruction is coming. You got to leave town. Yeah, the place that you chose, it's getting destroyed. You got to bounce. So I forget which word, but in that context, he's torn. Which one? Vayisma vayitmameh, right? Which means
He was delayed.
he delayed. He
We'll never find a place that's nice.
exactly. That's a Jewish way of thinking.
Beautiful.
This is great.
This is great.
I just put it in the pool. All right.
Can I raise my kids?
Yeah. Anyway, so I was gonna make a salt joke, but that's not wasn't funny. The point is that you have this chain-like descent from the top to the bottom, from the source to creation. And roughly speaking, Kabbalah discusses primarily 4 dimensions. We've talked about this before, but it's important to remind, but also to get these dimensions clear. We have the world of Atzilut, which is usually translated as the world of emanation. Then we have the world of Bria, which is the world of creation. Then you have the world of Yetzirah, which is the world of formation. And then the world of Asiya, which is the world of action. We live in a world of action. So we live at the bottom, and then there are higher realms. In each successive realm, from top to bottom, creation, existence, reality as we know it becomes closer and closer and closer to becoming manifest. Think about Silut as like the initial vision of the dream of what could be. But it's not yet manifest. It's a vision. It's a dream that you have. And then Bria might be the first prototype of that thing. And then Yetzirah, the third level might be where you refine the prototype. You kind of like, you tweak it, you refine it, make sure that it's what it needs to be. And then Asiya is where you go into production. And again, obviously these 4 steps cut out so many smaller steps in between, but roughly speaking, these are the 4 steps, right? Vision, prototype, iteration, and then production. These are the 4 levels of really pretty much all of creation follows this pattern and follows these steps. It's really hard to just produce something without having gone through these various steps and these stages. And so the point is that this is the way in which divine light, divine energy, divine life force descends from top to bottom to further the goal of creating what we know and love as our reality. Within all of Seder Hishalshalut, everything is connected. In other words, our actions don't just affect our plane of reality, but they affect also the higher rungs. Hey, good to see you, Ramon. But they also affect the higher rungs of reality as well. So it's not just that what we do, again, as I kind of said before about being an island and thinking that maybe, our actions don't matter or don't affect others. So that's, again, not true. Our actions do affect reality, but not just, as science would say, not just our physical reality, but also the higher spiritual dimensions as well. Everything that happens here has an effect above. And conversely, everything that happens above ultimately filters down to our reality as well. That's the law of spiritual gravity. Whatever's up will come down. And the law of spiritual precipitation is that whatever's up, whatever's down, goes up and comes back down again. That's why the Zohar, primary work of Kabbalah, teaches that if you want positive and open blessings that are just big and open and positive, then you and I have to also be open and positive and in a state of joy. The more joyous of a state we are in here, we are in our lives, that opens up the channels of joy and positivity above, and it brings down those blessings below. If we're in a tight and constricted place below, then that's the type of energy that flows to us as well, because everything is interconnected, interlocked, intertwined. It's not even, I would say, it's not even reward and consequence. It's not even reward and punishment. It's a natural reality of the condition. It's almost like if you heat water up to 212 degrees, it will boil. It's not like it says, oh, you're heating me. All right, I'm going to choose to boil. It's a natural thing. You push a button, you connect the circuit, the light goes on. You disconnect the circuit, the light goes out. You open up the pipes, more blessing flows. You constrict the pipes, less blessing flows. I mean, I think we've all had this experience at some point or another where you plug in a device with a charger and it's not charging. And you're like, what happened? And you realize that after a little while, the charger, maybe one of the ends of the charger, the cable, got bent or keeps on bending, and so the connection is loose. If you don't have a solid connection, the energy is just not going to flow through. That's just the way it is. So the broader and how is the connection brought in? We generate that. We generate that. The verse says, Hashem tzilcha, God is your shadow. And the mystics explain that God is our shadow. What does it mean that God is our shadow? We should be God's shadow. What does it mean God's our shadow? It means that that God has decided and chosen to follow our lead. God says, you tell me what mood we're in today. If you're in an open mood, then we're in an open mood. If you're in a constricted mood, we're in a constricted mood. If you're in a joyous space, we're in a joyous space. If it's the opposite, it's the opposite. If you're in a relationship or ever been in a relationship, you know exactly what that means. As you are, they are. As they are, you are. Right? We're coming up to the month of El. And there's which is the month before the Jewish holidays, the high holidays, and the Jewish New Year. And there's a great verse from Song of Songs. King Solomon wrote this love story that somehow made it in to the books of Scripture. When you read it, it's like, I don't know, I mean, a beach novel, sure. But like Scripture, yeah, there was a big debate. It's one of the 24 Jewish books of Scripture. It made it in. It made the cut. We understand that it's not about, only a man and a woman. It's about us, the soul and God. And it said one of the more famous verses is Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. What does that mean? On a very simple level, it means that I love them, they love me. But just scratch a little beneath the surface, and it's kind of like this. The way I am to them is the way that they will be to me. That's just the way it works in relationships. The way we are to the other is what is reflected back. And someone can always say, no, I'm going to wait for them to change and then I'll change. Okay, sure, you can say that, but why not just own it? Why not just be the one to own it? Let me emanate the energy that I want to see in this relationship. And then it's going to happen. As it says also in another verse, Kamayim. Kamayim. What is the original expression? I think it's Kamayim hapanim al panim, kain lev ha'adam el hadam, something like that. As water reflects the face, so does the heart reflect another heart. Maybe they didn't have mirrors back then, so they would look in water to see the reflection. But when you look in a reflection, what do you see? You see your face. You're not seeing anyone else's face. If you look in a mirror and a reflection, you see someone else's face, time to start freaking out, right? That's time to you got to check it. That's already, I can't explain that, right? But when you look, you see, are you happy? The face that you see, what's the mood? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it grateful? Is it anxious? Right? Does it feel blessed? Does it feel victimized? What does it feel like? What does that face, what does it look like? And you know why it looks like that? It's you. It's no one else. How does the face look? What is the energy of the face? You want to change that face that you're looking at? You can't. Go change the water. Go throw rocks at the water. Change. You want to change the appearance? What do? Change yourself. There's no other key. Let me buy another mirror. I don't like this. I don't like the way this looks. And buy a different mirror. We spend so much time trying to change everything around us until we hopefully realize that the one thing that was always in our control is the most important anyway. Changing ourselves. You want to change. I don't like the way that looks. Okay, great. Change. Open. And I'm not trying to minimize, right? Just change. Super easy. I get it. It's not always easy. But the point is at least to recognize and to embrace what that work really is. What is the work? The work is the internal change. So give me 1 second. Let me just round it, and then I'll take your question. So the point is that in any relationship, if whatever you want, you have to be modeling, you have to be expressing, you have to be sharing. You can't expect to share this energy and get back a different energy. It's almost like I planted tomatoes. How come I'm not getting cucumbers? Because you planted tomatoes. You can't invest a certain energy and expect to get back a different energy. Ani l'dodi v'dodi li doesn't only mean I love God, God loves me. It also means the way in which I am to the other is the same way they are going to be to me. Ani l'dodi v'dodi li, using the same words. The way I am to my beloved is the way my beloved will be to me. Hashem tzilcha, God is our shadow. Now, that sounds blasphemous. God follows our lead. What kind of business is it? Creating God in our image, not creating God in our image. We're not creating God in our image. We are expressing a truth. Kabbalah is expressing a truth. And that is that God says, I've created you. I've endowed you, human beings, the only creatures in the entire strata of existence that have free choice. And I'm giving you the lead. You tell me what we're doing today. You tell me how this is going. I'm ready to go. Creating God in our image? No, just revealing a truth. There is a reality in which when you are positive and when you are open, suddenly the world seems like a nicer place. There's a Hasidic story. I'm sure I've told it before, maybe even recently. I'm getting to the age where, not that old, but I'm getting to the age where, I don't remember exactly every story that I tell every time. So, there's a story that's told where there's two Hasidim, disciples, that are meeting with their rabbi, and the rabbi asked them about the town they come from, because they're both from out of town, from the same town, and they're meeting with the Rebbe. They're meeting with the Rebbe one after the other. So the first guy goes in, and the walls apparently weren't that, you could hear through the other side. Anyway, so the first guy comes in, and the rabbi asks him, "So how's your town?" He says, the town is great. Everyone is kind, and everyone is friendly. Everyone is take care of each other. They're studying, they're learning, they're praying. It's a great place to live." He gives him kind of a gift and says, "Thank you for the report." Sends him on his way. Now the second guy is listening to this conversation. He's like, "Are you kidding me? There's so many problems in this place where we live." So he goes. He's like, "I'm gonna speak honestly." So he goes into the rabbi and he gives him the honest take. It's got this place. The place where we live has this problem and that problem, the other problem. And the rabbi says, "Thank you very much for letting me know." And that's it. He's like, "No gift, no gift." So I don't understand. I'm being penalized for saying the truth. So the rabbi tells him, "Look, here's the reality in life. There's no such thing as," and I forget the name of the city. We'll call it Atlanta, even though it was not Atlanta back in Eastern Europe or Russia. So he says like this. He said, let's just use Atlanta. He's like, "There's no Atlanta. The question is, where are you? It's not where Atlanta is. It's where are you? If you're in a good place, if you're in a generous place, if you're in a kind place, if you're in a loving place, if you're in a prayerful place, a spiritual place, then that's the space that you live in. And if you're in a negative place, and a gossipy place, and a backstabbing place, and a unkind place, then that's the way the place is going to look. It's all about where you are. That's it. That's the reality. That's reality. It's like the story, the parable of the little bird. The little bird once was complaining to the mother bird. The mother bird sent the little bird somewhere. The little bird comes back and says, "It smells over there. I don't want to go over there." And then the bird sends the bird to somewhere else. Comes back, it smells over there. Comes back, third place, it smells. Everybody smells everywhere. The mother bird looks in the little bird's beak and says, "You've got a piece of schmutz over there, you got a piece of whatever it is over there, stuck in your nose." That's what's going on. So everywhere you look, it's no good. If everywhere we go, everyone's mean and cruel and unkind in every relationship, they're backstabbing and inconsiderate and everything like that. The simple question is, what energy are we emanating? Where are we at? What energy are we manifesting? If we manifest healthy, positive, hopeful, generous, kind, loving energy, it doesn't mean that other people don't have free choice, but more than likely, that's what's going to come back to us. Certainly from above, there's no distortion. The way we open up is what comes down to us, guaranteed. Yeah.
All right. So what is that that area above that we're affected? Because I've been told by a bunch of rabbis, God never changes. So if God never changes, how can we change the spiritual dimension? And what is that? Is that not God?
What kind of rabbis are you speaking to?
I don't know. Orthodox ones. Kabbalah ones.
No, God doesn't change. We're not talking about changing God, right? He's not changing God. But God is pulling levers. You go to an ice cream shop. What can I get for you? You tell them what you want. The guy says, "Great." No one does that with ice cream. What is that? No one pulls a lever. Soft serve, you pull a lever, right? I don't know. There's no kosher ice cream place. So what am I going to do? I mean, there's no kosher, right? But right? What would you like? Little Baskin Robbins action. Little scoop for you. Boom. Is that changing God? I don't think it's changing God. We're telling God, we're ordering. What are we ordering? What energy are we ordering up today? It's not changing God.
So we're not changing the nature of the spiritual
No.
dimension.
They're not changing God. But there's a whole ecosystem that we have the ability to pull some threads.
Going along kind of like what both of you were saying, in that one, this is sort of something that's, so to say, hard coded into the universe. It's like a physical law, pretty much. It's like a spiritual law of nature.
Right.
Right.
But I like that word, hard coded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I see sort of if you look at Hosea 2, it says you will no longer call me my master, you will call me my husband. And I think of it so many times the Tanakh describes calling to God, and it really is like a call and response system.
Right.
And that's kind of where the free will comes into it. But it's like a woman calling their husband. God will come to us and protect us and provide for us and all these things. But just like it says, elsewhere in the Tanakh, there are times where, they've refused to call to God, or they didn't, or they went to somewhere else. And then God was like, yo, even though you turned away from me at some point in time, I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to love you and still be your husband. So I think it's really just like a call response system that God has sort of set up.
Very well stated. And thank you for quoting those verses, which reminds me of another element that I don't want to spend too much time on, but pursuant to what you just said, it's important to recognize that even sometimes when we don't reach out and we don't make that call, that God sometimes takes the lead, because there's another verse in Song of Songs that says, Dodi li va'ani lo, the opposite. My beloved is to me and I am to my beloved, or I am to him. Meaning sometimes God initiates. If God realizes that we're not, that we're stuck, God will sometimes, and that man, Kabbalah says that, and when, like, what does that look like? That looks like any moment, anytime we feel like an inspiration that wasn't necessarily self-generated, like out of nowhere almost, we feel called to do something, we feel inspired, we feel some intuition, we feel we feel like there's a message being sent to us, delivered. We're not the ones initiating the dance, but it almost feels like we're being called to dance. And that's when God is reaching out. And that happens. It happens, on sometimes special occasions where you just kind of walk into the moment and suddenly you feel uplifted. You didn't do anything different, but it's just lifting you up, right? It's like it says the high holiday season, the days themselves contain such powerful energy. It just kind of lift up everybody. You just kind of get uplifted, even if you didn't really put in a lot of preparation. Sometimes you just get swept away in the moment. And sometimes you feel like, you feel like you're being called to do something. Like, I need to do this in my life, or change that in my life, or implement this new, good practice in my life, or recommit to whatever it is. And like, where did that come from? Maybe it's completely self-generated. Maybe it's also a little bit of a tap on the shoulder from above saying, hey, come, let's dance, right? As it were. It says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, every day a voice calls out from Har Chorev, from Sinai, to us. Every day there's an echo. There's a sound that calls out to us. And the question is only, do we hear the call? There's always the call. Do we hear the call? It's kind of like, it's interesting because we have now physical examples. Like when the Mishnah was written 1800 years ago, like what was a parable for that? That there's a voice that calls out that you might be able to hear, might not be able to hear. Like, what does that even mean? But nowadays, it's great. Because everyone in this room knows that if I had a desktop radio, right, with a battery inside, and we just turned it on and then fiddled around with the tuning a little bit, we could pick up sports talk and hear about what might happen. I always love sports talk. It's like, well, what happens if? Let's spend 3 hours talking about what will happen if. Or I can't believe what happened yesterday. It's great. It's phenomenal. Or we could listen to the weather, or we could listen to music or politics. Right? We can listen to anything. And so the question is, well, hold on one second. What if we don't have a radio? Like right now, we don't have a, I don't know, maybe this is a radio also, but we don't have a radio. So where's all that information? It's right here. The waves are right here. Because if you put a little radio, it would tune in right here. You didn't need anything else. It's right here. It picks it up. So where are these radio waves? Where's the music? It's right here, right here in this room. Do we hear it?
Also,
you need a tuner. Sorry. You need a tuner and a radio and a subscription. I'm kidding. You need right? You need something to tune it to.
I love that you brought that up. That's such a great example, because when you are turning a radio and you hear like static, it's actually just the native frequency of the universe around us. So that kind of speaks even more to like, it's really here. We
hear mostly static,
right?
Unless we're tuned in. But the point is that there's always this interconnectedness. Now, and I mentioned that there's 4 worlds: emanation, creation, formation, action, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. This roughly parallels the 4 dimensions of life or kingdoms in our world as well. There's a taxonomy of our natural reality. Taxonomy of creation or existence is inanimate life, vegetation, animal life, and humans. Again, 4 dimensions. Now, science, maybe in science class, you learned that there's only 3: inanimate, vegetation, and animals. And humans are animals. However, Kabbalah says, Judaism teaches, humans are not just animals. We have a little bit of there's qualities that are unique to a human being that are not, put us in a bit of a different category.
We're intelligent apes.
It's not just intelligence. In fact, we're called the medaber, the communicator. Our ability to communicate is what really sets us. Not that animals can't communicate, not that they don't have a way of delivering information, but it's a little bit more pragmatic and functional. Whereas human beings have the ability to really be storytellers. It's a bit of a unique gift that we have to tell a story.
Supposedly, we all tell stories. Their family history.
Well, they're not well published. Let's just put it that way.
They haven't been copyrighted.
Are you telling me that they sit you down and like, oh, do I have a whale of a tale to tell you? All right, good. Not getting many laughs this morning. Are they really that bad? Is it like, thank you, Waverly? Waverly's like, oh, I came back for this caliber of joke. Are you kidding?
I'm curious about something, right? Okay, so this might be a little conspiracy-ish, right? So, in the Tanakh, it talks about other beings that are intelligent, that come from somewhere, right? We might call them aliens today, right? But in the Tanakh, they say that aliens are like man, right? So
wait, hold on. Where are you seeing this aliens? I don't remember that.
So if let's say that today.
Are you talking about like angels?
Yes, so today people might say they're aliens because they're other beings that come from somewhere else, right? But in Tanakh, right, they call them angels. That's what intelligent beings that interact with us that aren't humans are. And they're considered man. So where would like a possible, alien/angel fall on there?
This I don't know. I know, but angels exist in the worlds of Yetzira and Bria. Typically not the world of Atzilut. Right. In other words, we are in, just to get this clear, we're in the lowest of the 4. Angels typically, depending on the type of angel, Kabbalah speaks about this extensively, either they're in the world right above or 2 worlds up. The rough distinction between the 4 worlds is that our world corresponds more to physical, right? It's tangible. The world above is marked by more of an emotional state of being. The world above that is more intellectual. The world above that is hallmarked by spiritual, almost spiritual oneness with source. So it's kind of like those angels that are very like fiery and loving and like very emotional, Yetzira. The angels that have more of an understanding of God, Bria, even one higher. Right. But the angels aren't really up there. Souls come from either the highest world. Some souls come from Atzilut, the highest world of emanation. Some souls come from lower worlds, depending on the soul. Oh. How does that work? That's a more complicated conversation. But the point is that everything is interconnected. Oh, so just like it is in our physical reality, that all 4 dimensions of reality are connected, right? Like vegetation grows from the ground. Let me start from the bottom. Soil, earth, would be inanimate, right? It doesn't move. It's not, right? It's just there. And then you have vegetation that grows from the soil. And then you have animals that eat the soil. And then you have humans that might harness the power of the animal to plow the field to then grow things. And then the whole cycle, everything is helping each other. And sometimes the law of unintended consequences is that you take out something, you're like, oh, we don't need this. Mosquitoes. Pff. Meanwhile, next thing you know, some disaster happens. Like, oh, we had no idea. We had no idea everything was connected or how everything was connected. I'm not suggesting taking out mosquitoes is going to lead to disaster. I would not mind if that were to happen, right? But I mean, like, as an example, like you take out one thing or one thing goes missing and suddenly like, oh, that's what they're for. Oh, spiders are important to have. Are they? I'm sure they are. Huh? Just not in your house,
They eat
right?
mosquitoes.
Oh, it all comes back to the mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes eat fish.
Done. And fish make gefilte fish. So it all comes back to gefilte fish. The point is that everything is connected and everything on some level benefits. Look, it benefits each other. You know, I once heard an analogy. One of the greatest film directors of all time is Alfred Hitchcock. And one of the things that his films are known for is that they were very precisely crafted. No extra scenes and no extra dialogue. If it's in the movie, it plays a role in the plot. Sometimes you know there's a movie, it goes on for a few hours, and like I don't even know what's going on. Like I could have taken out that second half. Like I don't think that added much. But like a real good director, a real good creator, every line is important. Without that one line, wouldn't have a movie. Like every detail is relevant. A good book, a good whodunit mystery, like every piece of dialogue and every scene is like crafted in a highly precise way. Great. Will we not extend the same benefit of the doubt to God and say that if God put it here, it's for a reason? Oh, that's unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. I don't know why God made that whole thing. It's not needed. All right. Do we have a little humility to say, maybe I don't know why God needs it, but it's necessary as part of this ecosystem? Everything that's here is relevant and important, including you and I, right? Every single human being that's here, planet Earth, is necessary. And by the way, if we actually told people that, maybe people would be a little happier, a little bit more empowered. It's like, oh, I'm here for a purpose. Not that, oh, you're one of 8, whatever the number is today, billion people, and like, you really didn't need to be here, right? I mean, think about the message of classical, you know, what you learn in science classes growing up. The world didn't need to be here. It's all a cosmic accident. You didn't need to be here. It's all, I mean, ultimately, it's all kind of accidental. Now have a great day. How empowering is that? What's the subtle message? You don't need to be here. Imagine you get hired by a company. You show up the first day, you're all excited. They're like, what do I do? They're like, no. Yeah, we don't really need you. I mean, like, you kind of just got hired randomly. Like, we don't really need you. How excited are you? Now, if you're getting paid, you might be like, this is great. I can play solitaire. I'm going back to the 90s here on my computer, right? You can go play solitaire all day and still collect the paycheck. Huh? Say it again.
You already had a computer in the 90s?
I don't know if I had a computer. I'm kind of figuring stuff out here timeline-wise. But whenever solitaire was a thing that people did on the computer in their downtime. So imagine like, oh, I just play solitaire, right? Great. That may be one approach. Another approach would be like, this is like sucking the energy out of my life. Being in a place where I'm not needed. Being in a place where I serve no purpose. That's annoying. That's more than annoying. That's like, it's suffocating. It stifles the human spirit. Imagine the subtle message that human beings get from a young age. All of this is a cosmic accident. It could have easily not been here as much as it is here. There's no real reason why you're here. Well, once you're here, you might consider, being a good person, but I don't know if it really matters anyway. Somebody may not say that. Some people may say that. It may not be said, but how hard is it to kind of realize like, well, isn't that the implication of just the way things are presented? And then you read Torah. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. You know what that sounds like? There's a plan. Sounds like there's intentionality here. Oh, this is supposed to be here. And then I'm supposed to be here. So I fill a role. Great. Well, now I'm excited. Now I'm happy to be here. So what do I do? All right, well, we got a whole list. When are you ready to start? Right now? Great. All right, here's the task list, right? Here are the mitzvot. Right, ready to go. What's the point? The point is that we're all connected. What we do does matter, and everything is intertwined. All of this is kind of the structure we call Seder Hishtalshel. From the top to the bottom, this organism, this, let's just call it this matrix, this web of interconnected energies, whether they're physical or spiritual or everything in between. Every point of energy, every point of matter, every point of creation is ultimately intertwined, interconnected, interrelated, right? One lever pulls another lever, pulls this, connects that, and ultimately there's this amazing synergy. Now, there is, however, a reality and a dimension that exists beyond this matrix or beyond this system. A dimension where no matter how hard we pull on levers and we push buttons, it's a space or dimension that we can't affect or touch. Kind of like, let's say maybe a computer or a phone or whatever it is. You only have access to certain parts of the system, right? But you can't actually access the core. They don't give you that access. They don't give you root access. So I'm an Android guy. Sorry if that's offensive. Anyone? I've always used Android, huh?
It's weird.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I remember back in the day, I'm sure still today, with these forums, like online forums, where you could like gain root access to your phone.
Root your phone.
Root your phone. Put on a custom ROM, root your phone. Custom.
I know he's in there right now.
XDA developers.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. So back in the day. So you gain root access. I remember my wife would always ask, so what can you do? I'm like, oh, you did it. I never really had a good answer. What you can do. Just felt good to get all the way in. Right? Boom, I got root access to the phone. So now there's a thing that backs up everything. All right, whatever. It didn't really change much. But the point is that typically there's a firewall, right? Like Apple, for example, won't let you have root access. I know there was jailbreaking at some point, but I don't know if that still exists anymore. But like you can only get so far. After that, no matter what you do, we're not going to let you break it. We're not going to let you do it because you might. And we don't want that. We don't want to deal with that. So we're just not going to let you get past a certain point. No matter what you do, no matter how many times you press buttons, right? No matter what sequence of buttons you're going to press, you're never going to be able to get past a certain point. Yes, you can delete things and you can change things, but no, you're not going to ever delete the core of what's going on there because we don't give you access to the core. Hold on one second. In a similar way, not exactly. In a similar way, the spiritual structure is such that the interconnectedness and the levers that we pull only goes to a certain point at the top of Seder Hishtalshel, at the top of this chain. But what's beyond the chain? A dimension that we don't have access to. That no matter how hard we pulled or pushed or the buttons we pressed, we can't access that in this kind of normative, sequential, responsive way. It's not gonna, we can't summon it in the typical fashion. It doesn't mean that there's never an interfacing between the two, that we can't ever, have awareness of or access on some level to that, but it's not in the normative way of like, if I do this, then that's naturally going to happen. It's beyond the system. It's beyond the system. Now, all of this is an introduction to explain a puzzling biblical story. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to merge all of these ideas that we've talked about this week and the past few weeks as well, and now superimpose it or now integrate it with a fairly, I think, famous biblical story. And it's a story that we first kind of got into a number of weeks ago, and then we kind of explained the spiritual dynamics, and now we're going to kind of bring it back together and put it together. What's the story? The story is the dramatic blessing that Isaac wishes to give to his older son, the older twin, Esau. And so he calls his son and he tells his son, before I die, I want to give you a blessing. He has two boys. Isaac, the father, does. He has two boys, and he wishes to bless the older brother, the older twin, with a blessing before he passes away. His son is a hunter. His son, literally, he hunts, animals, whatever it is. He says, bring me some food and I'll give you a blessing. Why the connection between the food and the blessing? Well, I mean, didn't your mother ever tell you not to bless at an empty stomach? I'm kidding. Right. But that's okay. It's something about that, right? Give me food, I'll give you a blessing. And mitamal, as I say in Yiddish, and right in the middle of this whole episode, what happens? Isaac's own wife, Rebecca, hears what's going on. She tells the younger twin, Jacob, go quickly, put on some clothes of your brothers. Oh, the father was blind, right? Isaac couldn't see. Put on some garments of your brother, right? So that, you kind of like, if he reaches out, at least you feel like, whatever. Put on some garments, put on some skin, whatever they were. And then she says, I'll make the food like your father likes. You go in, you're gonna get the blessings before he's got to get the animal. I got an order came in from Costco, boom, ready to go. Kosher meat from Costco, ready to roll. That's what happens. And Jacob goes in, and his father is like unsure. There's this whole dialogue. He says, who are you? He says, I am Esau, your firstborn. He says, really? He's like, yeah. He says, where'd you get the food? He's like, oh, it's the field. This is from the field that God has blessed me with. He's like, does not sound like Esau. Blessing God and whatnot. It does not sound right. So he reaches out to touch him. He feels like kind of hairy, whatever. He put on some animal skins, whatever it was. And so he says the famous words the father says, who couldn't see. He says, Hakol kol Yaakov, v'hayadayim midei Esav. The voice is the voice of Jacob. The hands are the hands of Esau. Can't figure out what's going on. But at some point, he's like, all right, I'll give you the blessing. He gives him the blessing. And then Jacob leaves. And a few minutes later, in comes Esau. Dad, I'm here with the food. Sit up. I got food for you. He's like, who is this? He says, I'm Esau. And he's a little bit more rough in his language. He's like, I heard he gave the blessing. He realized what happened. So there's a lot of questions with this story. Number one, the way we understand the narrative is that Esau, the older twin brother, he's not a good guy. Jacob is the good guy. And so the question is, why was the father wanting to give the blessing, his primary blessing, to his son who wasn't such a good guy before his passing? Now you might say, well, he's the older son. He should get the first blessing or the primary blessing, right? The Bechar, the firstborn. That's kind of the biblical structure. The firstborn gets the lion's share of the blessings. All right? Okay. So maybe that's it. But did he not know? Did he not know who his son Esau was? And then if Rebecca knew, his wife, if she knew that Esau really wasn't a good guy and that the blessing should go to Jacob, why didn't she just tell her husband? Why didn't they have a conversation? Why is she pulling the wool over her husband's eyes and kind of doing this in a underhanded way? Doesn't make sense. Why is Jacob taking the blessings in this duplicitous way? What's with all the subterfuge? What's with all the drama here? And so, first things first, why did Isaac wish to give these blessings to Esau? The answer, Kabbalah says, is the following. Isaac, and we're going to read it inside in a second. Isaac knew exactly who his son was. And he knew that Esau had fallen down to a very low place. But he also knew that, you know what they say, the higher you are, the harder you fall, or the lower you fall. So you can almost reverse engineer that. If someone falls really low, you know what that means? They have a very lofty source. Because you can't fall that far if you don't have a very lofty upside, right? You can't go all the, it's extremes, right? You can't go all the way that way if you couldn't have gone all the way that way. See, he knew that his son had a tremendous spiritual potential. He wanted to give him the most powerful blessings, just pump him with this amazing, unconditional blessing and love to kind of inspire him to change his ways. So it's not that he didn't know who Esau was. He thought he was a great kid. He was giving him a blessing. They weren't kids either. He thought he was a great guy, so he was giving blessings. He knew who he was, but he thought he can bring out the best within him by giving him these blessings. What kind of blessings? So Kabbalah, which we're about to read this, the blessings from the dimension, the supernal dimension of spiritual dew. Dew, as opposed to rain, symbolizes a level that human beings can't touch. Remember I said that there's a level beyond all of the whole matrix, the interconnected matrix. So the interconnected matrix is captured by the notion of rain. Why rain? Because rain is also part of a whole system. It's a whole water table system, right? There's water here, and then it evaporates, and then it collects in clouds, and then it precipitates, and then it gathers, and then it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. Water is constantly flowing between kind of up, high, above and below. But dew doesn't follow that system. Now, I've never analyzed it scientifically, but in Kabbalah it says tal lo me'atzer. Me'atzer, whatever the way the pronunciation is. Dew is never withheld. In other words, it's not based on what we do. Rain is the rain that falls from above, right, is kind of based on what happens below, right? If there's no waters below, then nothing is going to evaporate, nothing will precipitate. So you kind of need that interaction between above and below. Dew falls on its own. Dew descends on its own. It doesn't need anything below to stir it. It just comes down. And so Isaac wished to give his son from the dimension of supernal dew this blessing that is unconditional, not based on your effort. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. You didn't trigger it. You didn't pull it down. There's no levers that you pushed or pulled to get this energy, to get this blessing. I want to give it to you anyway. Why? So that it lifts you up. Unprovoked blessings. Let's read this inside. It's very powerful. It really demonstrates at the core of Father's love. We'll speak about why the mother didn't want this to happen. That's a conversation in and of itself. All right, take and pass. And I'm going to pull this up online as well. Okay, give me 1 second here. I am pulling this up online. Hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, so let me tell you what page we're on. We are on page number, hold on. We're going to start on page 30 at the bottom, where it says Isaac's mistaken surmise. Okay, which kind of captures what's going on over here. All right, give me a second. Let me share this. All right, you guys see where we're up to? Bottom of 30, Isaac's mistaken surmise. Yep. Yeah. All right. Isaac, I'm going to read. We'll read for a few minutes. Isaac wished to bless Esau, even though he knew that Esau did not measure up. He saw that Esau possessed very holy nitzotzot. Nitzotzot are divine sparks, potential. He wanted to elicit a supernal light to shine upon him, which would automatically gather these nitzotzot. Instead of digging them up one by one, he wanted to shine such a light, such a bright torch that it would just automatically attract the potential, the sparks within Esau up. 32. This supernal light would be like a great torch of fire, which when brought near to a spark automatically incorporates the spark within it. Again, meaning that it's almost like imagine just using a different example, not light, but imagine a bunch of nails in, I don't know, a haystack or needles or whatever it is. And you have this massive magnet that you put on top, put over it, hovering over it, and just, right? They all just fly up automatically. Similarly, by shining a supernal light upon Esau, his nitzotzot would automatically ascend and the supernal light would incorporate them, meaning that it would elevate his son Esau to realize his potential. That was the intention of Isaac giving him this blessing. Let's continue. This is the meaning of the verse that forms the opening of the blessings that he eventually did give. Now, he gave it to his younger son, Jacob, but he thought he was giving it to Esau. So what was the blessing that was supposed to go to Esau? It was, quote, God will give you of the dew of the heavens. This refers to the dew that drips from Atik Yomin, which is a level beyond the matrix, meaning beyond the Seder Shalshalot, which is also called the dew that gives life, the dew that will resurrect the dead in the future, right? In the realm or in the universe of cause and effect and consequence, so life is life and death is death. How can you bring life to that which is no longer alive? That has to come from outside the system, because within the system, it already had life, the body had life, and no longer has life. So that's gone. How can there be a resurrection of the dead? How can the dead rise once again? How can, remember the famous story with the Valley of the Dry Bones and the prophet and God saying, can these bones come alive again? And the prophet wisely says, God, I'm sure you can make it happen. And then God indeed makes it happen. So where does that come from? Where does that possibility come from? The way the mystics, the terminology the mystics use, obviously it's from God, but the dimension is referred to as the dimension of the dew that drips from Atik Yomin. Atik Yomin means the Ancient of Days, a reference to God Almighty who is eternal. So it's the dew that drips from there. That's the dew that will resurrect the dead in the future. It's not literally dew, the dew that falls on on the grass in the mornings, but this is the a spiritual dimension that can even bring life to those that are no longer alive, because it's coming from outside and above and beyond the system. In Kabbalistic terms, so what does it mean that it's a resurrection of the dead? Who are the dead? In Kabbalistic terms, this is a reference to the 7 primordial kings of Tohu, whose deaths are stated in the Torah. So just to explain, the Torah in the book of Genesis details the land of Edom. The land of Edom is the land of the descendants of Esau. And the Torah says that they had different kings and kingdoms, and it goes through kind of Esau's family tree and his descendants. And it says that this one reigned, and then he died, and then this king reigned, and then he died. Vayimlach, vayamat, vayimlach, vayamat, vayimlach, vayamat. He reigned and he died. He was king and he died. He was king and he died. He was king and he died 7 times. 7 kings who reigned and then died. So this is a reference, not just the 7 physical kings who reigned and then passed away, but to the 7 primordial kings, meaning energies of Tohu, the world of chaos, we spoke about last week, whose deaths are stated in the Torah. And so it means it's a reference to that which which seems fundamentally lost. Sometimes spiritual light seems to be lost. Maybe it's too broken, it's too lost. Can it ever be reclaimed? And the answer is yes. The dew is responsible for the resurrection of the dead, he continues. Let's continue on page 34. Since the level of dew transcends, I'm going to add the word both Tohu and Tikkun, the world that we live in. In other words, when you're dealing with a spiritual dimension that transcends even the higher level of this matrix, of this web, which energies, as we said last week, were shattered and lost. So a level that's beyond all of that can even reclaim those energies and pull them out from hiding. Elsewhere, it is explained that dew, the level of dew, is higher than, quote, the well of living water. The well of living water refers to Keter of Tohu, as explained in the Likutei Torah on the verse, then Israel sang, spring up a well, whereas dew transcends Tohu, and thus is even higher level than the well of living water. In other words, there is this dimension, and again, all of these are Kabbalistic spiritual energies that have names, but it's not like there's an actual well of living water that you can find, bottled in your local store. The well of living water is a spiritual dimension, which is using physical words and names. The well of living water sounds like a place where maybe things come back to life. He says, no, the well of living water is the top of this whole chain of existence. But to bring something back to life after it's already gone, you need something from outside the system altogether. You need something that transcends the system. You got to work from outside to create such an incredible, impossible miracle almost. So that is from the level of dew that transcends tohu, transcends the well of living water, even the highest point of this complex web. Let's continue. He says on bottom of 34, dew is never withheld. It's not like rain, where if there's no water that evaporates and there's no water that's going to fall down. Dew, on the other hand, is unilateral. It's never withheld. And the reason for this, the spiritual reason is, since mayin nukvin, which is a reference to our efforts that trigger a divine response, since mayin nukvin can reach no further than tohu, meaning our efforts in pulling levers can only reach the dimension of tohu, which is at the top of the structure. Mayin nukvin cannot reach any higher. Our actions cannot reach any higher. For this reason, dew cannot be withheld, as explained elsewhere. In other words, if you can't reach that level, you also can't lose the merit of deserving that level. Does that make sense? Like if you could reach it, well, then your actions could also mess it up. If you can touch it, you can also harm it. But if you can't touch it, then it's going to flow regardless of what you do or don't do. And so that's the level, the supernal level, the spiritual level that's called, it's referenced to dew. It's a level that's beyond what we can reach. Mayin nukvin is it's again, words that are alluding to water or whatever, but it's the idea is it's our ability to reach up and pull something down. We cannot reach the level of dew. That's a good thing, because that means that no matter what we do or don't do, that can still flow regardless, unilaterally from God. So God says, I'm giving to you anyway. It doesn't matter what you did, what you didn't do. This I'm giving to you. Therefore, he concludes the brackets, dew automatically refines and elevates the nitzotzot of tohu, the sparks of tohu. Dew automatically refines and elevates them because, again, it's not based on the efforts of the individual. It's coming down from above to below unilaterally. So now bring it all together back to the biblical story. Isaac wanted to, we're now in middle of page 36. Isaac wanted to elicit this upon Esau in order to refine and elevate him, even though Esau didn't deserve it, even though he never earned it, even though it's not something that's in his wheelhouse, as it were. Isaac wanted to give him, and he literally says, V'yitin lecha Elokim, may God give you mital hashamayim, from the dew of heavens. He wanted to bless him, his son, with this level of dew, spiritual dew, to lift him up, to kind of rock his world with this light that would then elevate him automatically without Esau having done any work on his own. Now, in truth, he says, Isaac was mistaken. Why was he mistaken? Because he perceived Esau from above, from the encompassing level of Levona Zaka. Levona Zaka means literally, it means pure frankincense. It was one of the ingredients in the incense that burned in the ancient holy temple. But Levona Zaka, if you look at the Hebrew words, can also mean Levona is like Levana. What is Levana? Lavan is white, and Zaka means pure. Isaac, the father, looked at his son Esau from the perspective of purity, meaning, and I don't know how different this is than any father. How did he look at his son? From a pure place of potential. He didn't look at what his son was doing. He looked at who he knew his son could be. We asked the question, why did he want to bless his son? Didn't he know what kind of bad guy his son was? Do you really want a father to be thinking that? You want a father to be saying, I know who this person could be. I see their potential. From the level, it sounds very mystical, from the level of Levona Zaka. He was looking from the level of Levona Zaka. What is Levona Zaka? A dad who loves his kid. He sees him from a pure lens. Pure potential. I remember holding this kid as a baby in my arms. Pure potential. What happened to that potential? What happened to that innocence? Is it gone forever, or can we somehow pull that back out? Now, somebody might be jaded and say, no. Once a person has gone to a certain place, it can never be rehabilitated. Never. But you know what a father says? It's almost like we're getting lessons in parenting from Isaac. You know what Isaac says? Still possible. We can still, if we love him enough, we can bring out the purity, the innocence, the Levona Zaka. We could bring this out. He imagined back inside, he imagined that Esau was good, like the good of Noga, meaning the good, that the potential good, and that he would be able to refine him in this manner. That is why he wanted to bless him. And so commentaries struggle with this. Why did Isaac want to bless Esau? This bad guy, why would he want to bless him? So some commentators say, oh, he was blind. He couldn't see. He had no idea who his son was. You know what Kabbalah says? He knew exactly who he was. And he also knew who he could be. And he never gave up on his son. That's a beautiful, I think that's a more beautiful lesson than saying, oh, he was just ignorant of his son's bad ways. He knew exactly who his son was, but he also knew his potential. A father doesn't give up on his kid. A mother, I'm kidding, but the mother, I mean, Rebecca had another path. She also didn't give up, but she, as we'll see soon, she wanted to enlist the power of the brother. She's like, give the energy, give the blessings to Jacob, and he'll work with his brother. It's not going to be parent to child. That's not going to be the best way to do this. However, I will do one more paragraph for today. However, his refinement, page 38, could never have taken place in this manner, meaning it wasn't going to work. Even though Isaac had good intentions to bless his son and to create this transformation, it wasn't going to work. Why? For had he elicited the supernal light to Esau directly, it would have led to one of two results. Either it would have been completely assimilated with him, meaning he would have taken the energy, the love, and just misappropriated it. It's kind of like he would have taken the energy and just continued down a negative path, now with even higher energy. So it wouldn't have turned him around. Or the other option is it would have nullified him, and he would have kind of broken him, and he would have lost his individuality completely. Either it wouldn't have changed. Either way, it wouldn't have changed anything. Either it would have been lost, the light would have been lost in Esau's current state of darkness, or it would have broken him to the point that it wouldn't have been him anymore. It would have overwhelmed him with this higher dimension, and then that's not Esau. So it's not like his son is now, living his true potential. It's not his son anymore. It would be a completely different reality. The brackets continue to talk about this, and we talk about chitzonim and makif and eagles soaring, and that's for next week. We have much more to talk about next week. Sitra achra, a lot of Kabbalistic terms coming up in the next paragraph, the next 8-9 lines, even on page 38, without even turning the page. But we'll talk about that next time. What's important for today is as follows. To recap today, there is a structure, and within the structure, everything is interconnected, right? Top and bottom and top, right, left, every direction, everything's interconnected. When we do something, it has an effect. And when the top it changes, then it affects us, etc. And that's all within the ecosystem, within the spiritual structure, the Seder Hishtalshalut, the chain-like structure of existence. But then there are dimensions that transcend that altogether. And those dimensions we can't touch, we can't affect, we can't alter, we can't blemish. We talked about before about God doesn't change. There are dimensions of spiritual reality that human beings cannot change, cannot affect. And energy that comes from those dimensions can radically transform you and I within this dimension. And it was this that Isaac wished to bless his son Esau with. A blessing from Tala Shemayim, from the dew of heaven. What is from the dew of heavens? The spiritual level of dew, that which is outside the system. That which Esau never broke because he couldn't touch. He wanted to bless him with that light. A loving parent to his firstborn child, to the older twin. I'm not giving up on you. I see the potential in you. I remember the potential that I saw in your eyes when you were a child. And how do we bring that back out? Do we just say, like, you're lost and it's over? Or do we continue to seek a way to to bring someone back to life. And what better place to do that than from supernal, the level supernal dew? He wanted to give him that jolt of energy. But ultimately, it was a misguided effort because either the jolt wouldn't have done anything or it would have broken him. Either way, it was not going to work. What is the way that would work? Again, I mentioned it very quickly in passing, to give the blessing to the brother and then the brother to work with him slowly but surely in a way of integrating the two on a pure level as opposed to a top-down, blast of energy, love bomb of this energy. And that's what Rebecca realized. Why does she have to do it in a way? Why couldn't she have told her husband that straight up? Good, we'll deal with that also. But all of that is upcoming in our series. What's the moral of the story and the takeaway for this week? So a few things to think about. Number one, I mentioned this in passing, but I think it's very important. Number one, recognize that you being here means that you matter. There's no it's not a cosmic accident. You're not here for no purpose. You're here for a purpose. Every morning, embrace that. I'm here for a reason. Number two, recognize that everything that we do and say and think affects everyone else. Right? And then let that guide our choices. Number three, recognize that if you want whatever energy you want for yourself, you got to emanate that energy first, right? Exude the energy that you wish. Positivity, love, generosity. You take the lead. You be the one to lead on an energy level, and that energy will come back. And finally, never give up. Never give up. There might be someone in your life, in our lives, might be someone that maybe very closely, maybe not so closely, that you might have at some point thought, whatever. They're out, whatever that means. They're out. Recognize that there's always potential. There's always a spark. And there's always some dew out there that can regenerate and rejuvenate. Thank you for joining me today for Kabbalah Café. Hope this has been a jolt of supernal dew in your lives. And looking forward to seeing you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Yeah.
So did Isaac know or did he not know? Like on one hand, he did know. And on the other hand.
So he knew and he thought he had a good strategy. But ultimately, we're saying from from a bird's eye view, it wouldn't have been the best strategy.
But did he know that?
I don't think so.
Okay, so he was fooled.
I don't know if he was fooled, but he was
not sure.
He was overly optimistic that his blessing was going to work.
In the text, it says he was
So he thought.
Yeah. Well, he was mistaken because he thought that he could fix this. He thought that if he only,
maybe he didn't know what he didn't know.
Right. And maybe this is how we know what works and what doesn't. It's almost like, it's not different. It's not that much different than any parent or loved one who sees their loved one going in a negative direction, but says that let me continue to give and maybe even enable the negative behavior. So,
but what I'm asking is, at one
did he make
point, he said he did know, and at the other point, he was
well.
fooled.
So some commentators say that he didn't know that his son was bad. So Kabbalah says he did know that, but he still saw the potential good that he could be. He was fooled. He was mistaken in his understanding of how this jolt might work.
Okay.
Yeah. He believed that it might work in a different way than it would have.
To your last point, as far as if you take the father example, just tries to do, give his son, even though he knows that it's unconditional love. If you take that and what Isaac was planning to do that we know, we believe would not have worked.
Yeah.
On his son, because the light or the dew that he was too powerful for him to observe, he would have broken, he would be a different man. Then you would take that and implement it into real life and say, unconditional to a point, because if a father or any parent takes a kid, let's say that is, was drunk and just keeps on trying to give them money or whatever, and at one point or another, we learn that you just have to let it go, because there is nothing in the end that it doesn't come from the individual itself. Maybe, I don't know if this is a good example, that might be, I don't know, but I'm saying like other things, Isaac was wrong. So if we do that in real life, aren't we enabling constantly bad behavior? Or if a king, gives the keys to the kingdom to the son that he knows is bad because he wants to elevate him, and that son takes that and creates evil to no end.
Or a father that gives a business over to a kid who's, just gonna party and sink it.
You can say, let's go and do that and try. It's a slippery slope.
I'm confused a little bit with the potential thing, which is I don't know exactly what you're saying. There's not necessarily being realistic. That's the part that I'm intrigued in the story.
So I think like this. I think you're both asking very good questions. I think it comes down to this. The role of, I think, maybe the lesson is, the role of the father is to fight for the son. How it actually happens, maybe the mother, again, it doesn't have to be gender specific, but like maybe it doesn't happen in that way of continuing to hand the cash or the enabling, but to see and to yearn for and to hope for the potential to be brought out, and for the shtuyot, for the foolishness to go away. I don't think that a parent should ever give up on a child. But I think you're asking the difference between giving up versus enabling. And I'm with you. And ultimately, the blessing didn't go to Esau. Rebecca made sure that it went to Jacob, and that Jacob would work with his brother slowly, for a few thousand years to try to get that going. So I think ultimately what it comes down to is there is a point where we shouldn't give, but we should always see the potential there and always seek for the best. And we might not know that line where to, and I don't know that that's a hard and fast rule about where to, say no, or, maybe there are rules. I don't know. But even after that line, we should still see the potential. We should still see there as being, as the innocence is somewhere still there. Sarah.
There's also an example, like the balance or something between like free will and divine decree, sort of like, the dance, I guess, between the two.
Right.
Maybe, obviously the intentions were good for the father, but God had other plans, so to speak.
Right.
And so he worked through Rebecca.
Kind of made it happen in a different way. Yeah, you could also say that. Yeah.
Then that's just what's really coming straight from him.
Right.
And it also kind of makes me think, I took a class, I think it's called What If, like forever ago. And it was like these big ideas.
What is?
What is?
Yeah.
And
free choice.
Yeah, and it was talking about, I think one of the concepts that I remember was explaining how God is sort of beyond time and space.
Yes.
And so when you were talking about that other dimension, that was kind of what I thought of, was literally beyond time and space. So it technically, if something's beyond your time and space, you can't physically intercede with that at all.
Yeah. Correct. That level that's beyond time and space is not accessible by those that are stuck inside the matrix of time and space. Yeah. But I'm hoping that I'm saying something that's meaningful to what your question, because I think what you asked is right, that like at some point you have to say no, and isn't that the lesson? Isn't the lesson that sometimes Esau doesn't get the blessings? And I think you're right, but in other words, he didn't get the blessings in this story. But you know what? The father still believed in him. Even after Rebecca, made sure to facilitate that Esau didn't get the blessings directly. I don't know. We have no indication that Isaac ever gave up on his son. And I think that itself is a lesson worth retelling. A father always seeing the best in his kid. Maybe not to the point of delusion, and danger, where it's actually, he's enabling something that's actively dangerous and making things worse. We have the case that happened a few years ago in Michigan, where like the parents bought the kid like firearm. Kid went into the school, right? So, and the parents, I think, right, they were put on trial for that, right, for culpability. So we say, well, we saw the best in him, and we thought like he just wanted to have fun. So like, well, we didn't know. We took the lesson of Isaac. Well, maybe sometimes you need Rebecca to say that's not a good idea. This is going to be dangerous right now. But should we ever lose hope? I think the lesson is we should not lose hope. We also have to be smart, but we can't lose hope. And I think that's what I meant by the takeaway, in addition to all the other stuff about, the energy that but like the idea that we should seek out the best. We should be with everybody. We should always look to everyone's best, but certainly our own mishpacha, right? Our own family. We should seek out the best. If not a parent, then who? There's so many people in the world that can judge, based on superficial stuff and discard. But like, if a parent doesn't love their child unconditionally, like, where else is that going to come from? Right? It's got to come from the parent. But again, to your point, yeah, we got to be careful. And I think that's the ultimate lesson of the story. The ultimate lesson of the story is that the blessing doesn't come to Esau. He doesn't get the blessing. I mean, he gets a blessing, but he gets he gets $5. He doesn't get the full. He doesn't get the due from heaven. He gets some allowance, but that's it. He doesn't get
So it seems like it could also be what's more important: potential for the individual, potential versus demonstrated.
Yeah.
Because maybe Esau did have more spiritual potential than Jacob, but
He did.
Jacob had an affinity for spirituality, where Esau had an affinity for pillaging and
hunting and
hunting
whatever.
and
Right.
robbing. So what's more important at this point now? Is it the birthright or is it the person? Because it seems like the birthright is going to be the person that continues a very unique legacy of monotheism, and it seems like at this point, this guy has shown us who he is, and this guy is going to show us who he is. And maybe Jacob has less potential, but he's a safe bet to carry on the tradition because he actually is into it. So because he's into it, he's passionate about it, he would do a great job, better than the guy that's just, like you said, taking the money and buying all the drugs his whole life.
Yeah.
So
I think ultimately that's what it comes down to is that Esau has a greater potential. But again, when you have the energy, it could either swing this way, like broadly, or it could swing the other way broadly. So it could either be amazing, like superpower, or superpower the other way. And it went the other way. But that itself is an indication of, wow, when you see, if you're a teacher in a class and there's a kid that's really like riling up and getting everybody, there's two ways to look at that kid, like troublemaker, I got to get this kid out of my class, or this kid's a leader. How do I harness this power for good, right? How do I get this kid to on board? Because there's no one's going to be like this kid. This kid is going to change the world. How do we make this happen? And I think we have here a story on a very human level. Forget the Kabbalah for a second. On a very human level, I think we have a story. My pleasure, Mariana. Great to see you. We have a story of a father who sees the potential of the son and desperately is trying everything that he can to bring it out. And you can't live someone else's life, and you can't choose for the other person. And I think this is, if there's any story that's a human story that replays itself again and again and again, it's people wishing that other people make different decisions. Isn't that like life?
Yeah, you can't change people.
And you can. And what do you do if you love this person so much and you see so clearly who they could become, but they're not, as you pointed out, but they're not there. They're living a completely different life, but you see it. You see it. Imagine you're an art teacher, you're a music, you see the potential, and they just won't do the work. They just won't do the work. They just won't pick up the brush and paint. They won't pick up the instrument and play. They just won't do it. And you're like, what do I need to do here? How do I get you to do that? What do I need to promise you? What do I need to give you? That's a more, it's not a destructive example. It's either will maximize or won't maximize. But like, imagine in this case, you see your son, he's got tremendous potential, but he's stuck. It's not a theoretical story. The story is played out millions of times. The story plays out to some extent in all of our lives. And the message is, I think the message is here, what is the role of a father? Not a mother, also a mother. Don't give up on your kids. Now, whether that means to keep on giving the Tal Hashamayim, the dew from heaven, I don't know. That we got to consult the story and how it plays out. But to see the potential, we should never stop seeing the potential. All right. May Hashem grant us the ability to see the potential, to help others, and most immediately to help ourselves reach the potential that we all have. Good to see you all.
Right.
A few quick announcements. Number one, we got the boxing class starting Wednesday night. This is going to be amazing. 3-time world champions. I hear King Raheem will be here teaching boxing skills, self-defense, Jewish pride and strength. Join us. Wednesday, men's and women's class is available. 7:30 men's class, 8:30 women's class. What else? We got a parenting class coming up. We got more things up that I can't think of right now. So check. Retreat coming up. Yes, the retreat coming up in North Georgia at the end of October. Join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's great to see you. Great to see you back.
I do.
Thank you very much. Beautiful class.
Thank you so much, Mariana. Thank you. Bye, Dr. Maxi, Natan.
Thank you.
Shavua Tov.